Hey there, my name is Jared, and welcome to the Jared Show Wisdom Podcast. In this episode, we will be going over Hinduism, beliefs, views, and the subtle infiltration of Western culture. Welcome to the show. This episode is all about Hinduism. You may have heard about how Hinduism has over 300 types of gods, or seen the many-armed blue goddess Shiva, but few have seen the impact Hinduism has had on Western culture, with terms like Deva, Avatar, how about Kama Sutra, or yoga. Another interesting thing would be the Swastika and how that relates to Hinduism. In this episode, we'll get into all of that and much more. In section 1, we'll start with the basics, the structure of Hinduism and what they believe. In section 2, we'll take a look at how Hinduism is practiced. And in section 3, we'll get to how Hinduism has suddenly flowed into Western culture. Before we begin, I would like to formally state, for this episode and the previous ones, basically any episode on this podcast, that I am not an expert in any religion. I have merely taken it upon myself to seek out the truth. And in doing so, I have answered many questions along the way, and I'd just like to share the answers I found. Same thing goes with Hinduism and everything I've already shared about Buddhism and scientism, and everything I'm going to share. But if you feel that I have gotten something wrong, or right for that matter, please feel free to email me at TheJarredShow WisdomPodcast at gmail.com. There's a link in the description below, in case you didn't catch all that. Before we go to our first break of the episode, how about pondering this question? What do we really know about Hinduism? I'll give you a minute to collect your thoughts, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Jared Show Wisdom Podcast. Hinduism is actually the third largest religion in the world. But what do we really know about it? I must confess, before I did my own comparative religion study many years ago, trying to answer all these questions, I really didn't know very much. But let's find out right now what Hinduism is all about. To its adherents, Hinduism is a traditional way of life. Many practitioners refer to the orthodox form of Hinduism as the eternal law or the eternal way. The Sanskrit word dharma has a much broader meaning than religion and not its equivalent. All aspects of Hindu life, namely acquiring wealth, fulfillment of desires, and attaining liberation, are part of Dharma, which encapsulates the right way of living. As I said, in Buddhism, it's also the way to understand it would be truth. Right? Dharma is truth, or living in truth. And you could also, in Hinduism, you could call it eternal harmonious principles of their fulfillment. All of those aspects. Desires, liberation. Hinduism is actually not an organized religion and has no single systematic approach to teaching its value system. Nor do Hindus have a simple set of rules to follow like the Ten Commandments. We're going to break things down into a simple understanding of things. But their local, regional, caste, and community-driven practices influence the interpretation and practice of beliefs throughout the Hindu world. There is a common thread among all of these variations in belief in a supreme being and adherence to certain concepts such as truth, or dharma, and karma. Belief in the authority of the Vedas, sacred scriptures, serves to a large extent as the very definition of a Hindu, even though how the Vedas are interpreted may vary greatly. Here are some of the key beliefs shared among Hindus. Truth is eternal. Hindus pursue knowledge and understanding of the truth, the very essence of the universe and the only reality. According to the Vedas, truth is one, but the wise express it in a variety of ways. Another key belief shared with Hindus is Brahman is truth and reality. Hindus believe in Brahman as the one true God who is formless, limitless, all-inclusive, and eternal. Brahman is not an abstract concept. It is a real entity that encompasses everything, seen and unseen in the universe. Now, Brahman is usually part of the Hindu Trinity, dealing with Vishnu, Brahman, and Shiva. Another key belief among Hindus would be the Vedas, or their sacred texts, their scripture, are the ultimate authority. The Vedas are Hindu scriptures that contain revelations received by ancient saints and sages. Hindus believe that the Vedas are without beginning and without end. When everything else in the universe is destroyed at the end of a cycle of time, called the Kalpa Yuga, I believe it's 4,321,000,000,000 years cycle. At the end of this cycle is the Vedas. The Vedas remain. Another key belief shared with Hindus is everyone should strive to achieve Dharma, understanding. Understanding the concept of Dharma helps you understand the Hindu faith. Unfortunately, no single English word adequately covers its meaning. Dharma can be described as right conduct, righteousness, moral law, duty. Anyone who makes Dharma central to one's life strives to do the right thing, according to one's duty and abilities at all times. Another key aspect would be individual souls are immortal. A Hindu believes that the individual soul, Atman, is neither created nor destroyed. Now, this is not to be confused with an Atman, right? So, Atman is the individual soul. In Buddhism, Anatman is non-self. Okay? Atman is neither created nor destroyed. It has been, it is, and it will be. Actions of the soul while residing in a body require that it reap the consequences of those actions in the next life. The same soul in a different body. The process of movement of the Atman from one body to another is known as transmigration. The kind of body the soul inhabits next is determined by karma, or actions accumulated in previous lives. Another key aspect, the goal of the individual soul is mashka. Mashka is liberation, the soul's release from the cycle of death and rebirth. We went over something similar to this in the previous episode about Buddhism. The liberation, it occurs when the soul unites with Brahman by realizing its true nature. Several paths can lead to this realization and unity. The path of duty, the path of knowledge, the path of devotion, unconditional surrender to God. And we'll get into those a little bit later in practices in the second section. But here we see things somewhat similar to Buddhism, yet there are subtle differences. One gigantic difference being that Buddhists believe that there is no single supreme deity, or no supreme deity at all, whereas Hinduism believes that there is supreme deity. Those supreme deities are broken up into many different demigods, and we'll get into that as well. In the next section, we'll take a look at some of the practices of Hinduism. Before we go to break, I'd like to pose this question. Do you feel that yoga is a part of Hinduism? We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back to the Jared Show Wisdom Podcast. So is yoga a part of Hinduism? The easy answer is yes. It is a form of bhakti, or worship. Bhakti refers to devotion, participation in, and the love of a personal god or a representational god by a devotee. Bhakti Marga is considered in Hinduism as one of the many possible paths of spirituality and alternative means to mashka, or liberation. The other paths, left to the choice of the Hindu, or the devotee, are jnana marga, path of knowledge, karma marga, path of works, raja marga, path of contemplation and meditation. Now, I do apologize if I'm butchering all of these ways of saying things. I do apologize. I'm trying my best with them, so bear with me. But bhakti is practiced, or worship is practiced, in a number of ways, ranging from reciting mantras or incantations to individual private prayers within one's home shrine, or in a temple or near a riverbank, sometimes in the presence of an idol or image of a deity. Again, Shiva comes to mind, the blue figurine that has many arms and has a semicircle above its head. Bhakti, or worship, is sometimes private inside household shrines and sometimes practiced in or as a community. It may include music and or singing, where devotional verses and hymns are read or poems are sung by a group of devotees. While the choice of the deity is at the discretion of the Hindu, the most observed traditions of Hindu devotationism include Vishnu, Shiva, and Shakti. The Hindu may worship multiple deities, all as henotheistic manifestations of the same ultimate reality, cosmic spirit, and absolute spiritual concept called Brahman in Hinduism. Bhakti Marga is more than ritual devotionalism. It includes practices and spiritual activities aimed at refining one's state of mind, knowing God, participating in God, and internalizing God. This is where yoga comes into the picture. In whatever way a Hindu defines the goal of life, there are several methods or yogas that sages have taught for reaching that goal. Yoga is a Hindu discipline which trains the body, mind, and consciousness for health, tranquility, and spiritual insight. This is done through a system of postures and exercises to practice control of the body and mind. Texts dedicated to yoga include the Yoga Sutras, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, the Bhagavad Gita, and as their philosophical and historical basis, the Upanishads, which is the philosophical books of the Vedas. Yoga is the means for these four major margas, or paths, as discussed in Hinduism: Bhakti Yoga, the path of love and devotion; Karma Yoga, the path of right action; Raja Yoga, the path of meditation; and Jnana Yoga, the path of wisdom. While Bhakti practices are popular and easily observable aspects of Hinduism, not all Hindus practice Bhakti or believe in God with attributes, Sangha Brahma. Concurrent Hindu practices include a belief in God without attributes and God within oneself. There are many different practices within Hinduism, yoga only being one of them. As we can clearly see, yoga historically comes from the Upanishads. The Upanishads being a collection of philosophical texts within the collection of scripture called the Vedas. I've actually read the Upanishads, or sections of the Upanishad. Very interesting. A lot of amazing, interesting things. Talks a lot about oneness, talks a lot about Atman and oneness with Brahman. Very interesting, but this is historically where yoga comes from. Just as yoga has infiltrated the West, so many other aspects of Hinduism have as well. Perhaps so more than we are aware of. As we take our last break, here is one last question to ponder. When you hear the word swastika, what do you think of? We'll be back in just a minute. And welcome back to the Jared Show Wisdom Podcast. The question before the break was about the swastika. I know that I've always associated this symbol of the swastika with Nazis in World War II and Hitler, but the swastika actually is an important Hindu symbol. The swastika symbol is commonly used before entrances or on doorways of homes or temples to mark the starting page of financial statements, and mandalas constructed for rituals such as weddings or welcoming a newborn. In the diverse traditions within Hinduism, both the clockwise and counterclockwise swastika are found, with different meanings. The clockwise or right-hand icon is called a swastika, while the counterclockwise or left-hand icon is called the Swastika. Sorry if I don't know how to pronounce that. The clockwise swastika is a solar symbol, suggesting the motion of the sun in India, the northern hemisphere, where it appears to enter from the east, then ascend to the south at midday, exiting to the west. The counterclockwise swastika is less used. It connotes the night, and in tantric traditions, it is an icon for the goddess Kali, a terrifying form of Devi Durga. The symbol also represents activity, karma, motion, wheel, and in some contexts, the lotus. Its symbolism for motion and sun may be from shared prehistoric cultural roots. The swastika isn't the only, unfortunately familiar, link to the Western culture. The term Deva comes from Hindu culture as well. The Hindu scriptures refer to celestial entities called devas, or devi in feminine form, which may be translated into English as God or heavenly beings. The devas are an integral part of Hindu culture and are depicted in art, architecture, and through icons and stories about them are related in the scriptures, particularly in Indian epic poetry. In Western culture, many women like to call themselves devas, essentially calling themselves gods. Avatar is another idea that has slipped in through a movie with the same name. Perhaps you've seen it. The word avatar does not appear in the Vedic literature, but appears in verb forms in post-Vedic literature, and as a noun, particularly in the Puranic literature after the 6th century AD. Theologically, the reincarnation idea is most often associated with the avatars of Hindu god Vishnu, though the ideas have been applied to other deities. Varying lists of avatars of Vishnu appear in Hindu scriptures, though it's said that the incarnations of Vishnu are innumerable. The avatars of Vishnu are important in Hinduism theology. In the goddess-based Shaktism tradition of Hinduism, avatars of the Devi are found, and all goddesses are considered to be different aspects of the same metaphysical Brahman and Shakti, or energy. And last but not least would be the Kama Sutra. Known throughout most of the Western world as the Book of Sexual Positions, the Kama Sutra is an ancient Indian Sanskrit text on sexuality, eroticism, and emotional fulfillment in life. Attributed to Vatsyayana, the Kama Sutra is neither exclusively nor predominantly a sex manual on sex positions, but written as a guide to the art of living well, the nature of love, finding a life partner, maintaining one's love life, and other aspects pertaining to pleasure-oriented facilities of human life. It is a sutra genre that has survived into the modern era with different expositions and commentaries. The text is a mix of prose and poetry, verses. The text lists desires, sexuality, and emotional fulfillment as one of the proper goals of life. Its chapters discuss methods of courtship, methods of training in the arts to be socially engaging, finding a partner, flirting, maintaining power in a married life, when and how to commit adultery, sexual positions, and other topics. The majority of the book is about the philosophy and theory of love, what triggers desire, what sustains it, and how and when it is good or bad. Personally, I think he lost me at when and how to commit adultery. But these examples are just a few as to how Hinduism has seeped into Western culture. As for the bottom line to Hinduism as a whole, now that we've looked at the basic premise, the things that they believe and how they practice those beliefs, here's the bottom line. Because it follows some of the same reincarnation themes, or rather Buddhism actually adopts those themes from Hinduism, seeing as how Hinduism came first, I think the same conclusions apply here as in the last episode with Buddhism. If every birth is a rebirth, moving backwards from this incarnation or life, there's a finite amount of lives or births. So what about the very first birth? And in the first birth, what was it you were paying for by way of your karma if you hadn't had a previous life? To put it another way, why were you born in the first place? Also, the same applies here as with Buddhism. Who decides what's right and wrong? I think this is where Buddhism and Hinduism get into Dharma or universal truth, but who or what started the ball rolling? Who or what created right from wrong? Or where do we get our morality from? Now, in Hinduism, there is at least an answer to this question. Brahman, right? The creator god within the Hindu trinity, right? So you have Brahman, Vishnu, and Shiva. But then we get into many demigods of Hinduism, and things get quite complex again. Hinduism leaves us with more questions about more gods and how everything works. While Buddhism can be a simple guide to a peaceful, albeit a lonely, existence, waiting to become emotionless, die, and cease to exist, Hinduism brings with it somewhat the same purpose, with much more work to attain it. After having read the Upanishads and after looking at Hinduism, I would have to say, Hinduism, with all its idol worship, gods and goddesses, as well as the central core belief in reincarnation, Hinduism just doesn't have the answers. If anything, Hinduism does a very good job of carrying out the age-old saying, if you can't dazzle them with the truth, baffle them with bullspit. That's not what we're after here. There are answers to the existential questions of who am I, why am I here, where did we come from, where am I going, and all of the rest. Now, I don't mean to sound maybe condescending towards Buddhism and Hinduism here. What I'm doing is I'm looking at it emotionlessly. I'm looking at it as if I have no stake in whether Hinduism is right or wrong. I'm just looking at it as if it's not my religion, but I'm not against it being my religion. I'm looking at it with no emotion. To say these things may sound as if I'm being condescending or mean or anything, but really I'm not. I don't have any emotion behind what I'm saying. I'm saying, Hinduism, Buddhism, they don't have those answers. It's very simple. But in the next episode, we will take a look at another Oriental religion, that of Taoism. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe for more. New episodes every Monday and Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Thank you for listening. And as always, and in all ways, may God bless you. Thank you.